Hi guys, and welcome back to another video, and today I'm going to be doing another character file review, this time on a Last of the Summer Wine character, but in this case it is two characters. I'm talking about Barry and Glenda Wilkinson. Barry and Glenda Wilkinson, known as Barry and Glenda in Last of the Summer Wine, made their first appearance in January 1986, in part of the New Year's Day Christmas special, Uncle of the Bride, which isn't only it features the appearances of loads of characters who become important to Last of the Summer Wine as a whole, as they appear throughout the whole in kind of like era of the show until it ended in a way. And Barry and Glenda stay for a very long time. And I'm only getting into the characters, them two together, especially them two couple, and it felt right just doing together because they're always together. I mean, I don't think I feel like a bit video just on Barry would be very boring, and a video just on Glenda would be a little bit boring as well. I feel like them two together, that's what makes them good characters. I feel like them two separately doing two videos separately on them, I don't think it was going to work. So that's why I decided to do that. So yeah, I'm going to start off with Glenda. So Glenda, she makes her first appearance in Uncle of the Bride, which is, funnily enough, the episode where Barry and Glenda get married. Debut. She is also, I believe, the youngest actress in the entire show. Don't quote me on that, but I think I'm right about that. And she does a really great job. Absolutely love the way she plays Sarah Thomas. She does a really great job, and I like her. I like her relationship with her mother, Edie Pegden, who's obviously played by Thora Hurd, and I like their kind of dynamic. She's like, "Oh, drink your coffee," when they're talking bad about men and all that sort of stuff. I like their kind of relationship. They've got a good bit of chemistry and sort of banter, and I like that the mother and daughter relationship that they've got, and I think it's really great. Also like her relationship with Wesley, her dad, and Wesley, funnily enough, appeared in Last of the Summer Wine before all them characters. So I kind of feel like Wesley is the reason all of these characters have been in the show and remained in the show for that long period of time, because he was the first to join. I think he joined in 1984 or something like that. So that's kind of interesting that he was kept on. Very interesting indeed. Um, and Glenda, as a character, she's very like doting. I think that's the right word. She loves Barry so much. She's always there for him. She always wants to do stuff with Barry. She can't bear for Barry to go to work or leave. She's always there with him because she loves him so much. And I think out of all the couples in Last of the Summer Wine, Barry and Glenda have a very rock solid relationship, which means they love each other a lot, and you always see them together, which is kind of interesting in comparison to all the other couples where they sort of hate each other and sort of live with each other because they have to, not because they want to, which is always quite different. They're a lot more happier characters, I can say. So they're a bit more of a ray of sunshine in comparison to everyone else, and yeah, and they live in a very nice house. They've got a very nice not a very nice house with like a big living room, and it's just a great house, really. They've got a good house. Moving on to Barry. Now Barry has some stuff going. Like he's always obsessed with his car. He doesn't like people touching his car. He doesn't like people mucking around with his car. Particularly Wesley. He likes Wesley, but doesn't really like him, mucking around with his car, because his car is like his baby. That's his child, effectively. So he just loves the car too much. Too much. And so, even to the point where they drive to Compo's funeral, he's very he makes up an excuse to have a cough, so he has to cough so Wesley doesn't hear the engine, which is very interesting. Sort of just like trying to make sure that he doesn't muck around with his car. But I think at the end of the episode he does muck around with his car. So yeah. Um, Barry and Glenda's also debut also tied in with that of Seymour Oththwaite, Michael Aldridge, and he came into the show and was sort of related to them. So that was very interesting that they did that as well. Something else about Barry and Glenda together is I've said about their rock solid bond and everything, but Glenda is so protective of Barry. It's ridiculous. She always thinks that he's having an affair, which I don't think Barry would ever really have an affair. It seems a bit far-fetched and stupid. It seems a bit random why he would ever do that, because he clearly does love Glenda, and you can always see that. But did you know that Barry, the actor who played Barry, Mike Grady, who plays the character, he was also known for other sitcoms such as Citizen Smith. So he's got more of a comedy, but I've seen him in other stuff. I believe the person who played Glenda, Sarah Thomas, I think that's the right name. I think I said it earlier. She was known for like Wurzel Gummidge and loads of other stuff. So that's kind of interesting. They both got backs in comedy and stuff like that. So it's very interesting. Barry, something that I do like about Barry's character, I like the fact that he plays golf and that's sort of his hobby. So they sort of brush him off to the side, and he sort of disappears and plays golf. And they got Toby, who he doesn't like because he's the golf club owner, and he doesn't like Barry because I don't know why, he just doesn't like Barry, because he always gets in his way and stuff like that. Something else I'm going to say. I think I was going to mention it earlier, but Barry left The Last of the Summer Wine in 1990. I believe this was because the actor he was doing other stuff and all that sort of stuff. I don't really know. But then Barry disappeared for 6 years. I didn't realise this until the making of this video. Well, that he had left. He'd left Last of the Summer Wine, and then came back 6 years later in 1996. So he sort of missed the second Foggy era, which I never really noticed. Which is a bit random, but yeah, he disappeared from Last of the Summer Wine and only was mentioned via Glenda. So that's interesting. A little fact. I don't know whether any of you guys knew that, but yeah, it was odd that he just disappeared like that. But then he was brought back in 1996, and he stayed obviously until the end of the show, and so did Barry Anglet. Stayed until the end of the show in 2010 in How to Not Cry at Weddings, the last episode of Last Summer Wine, which isn't the best episode of Last Summer Wine, I can guarantee you. But Barry and Glenda, I feel like they do bring a certain bit of youth to Last of the Summer Wine, which is a bit ironic considering they're old, but they're not as old as everyone else, because I think when they got married in the show, I think they were in their 40s or something like that. So they're sort of older, but not too old in a way. So that was interesting. Barry sometimes gets wrapped up in the chaos that's going on in Last of the Summer Wine, but he was never a part of the trio. He was never a part of that. He was just sort of a side character, first and foremost. But I did like it when Barry would get involved, because it would sometimes be really stupid. I believe there's an episode where they're trying to tackle the cat creature, and Barry gets involved in that. So stupid, but amazing nonetheless. There's an episode where they try and get Barry to play as this kind of mafia boss to try and save Clegg. It's random, I can tell you that. And there's also an episode where Barry dresses up and he's in this heavy rock metal band, and he's wearing this big wig, and he's got the amount of stuff they made Barry do, I think, is amazing, because for a character who shouldn't do that much, he did loads in this time. And Glenda as well, always thinking that Barry's having an affair, even if he's trying to help out the trio or do something nice for the trio. It gets thrown back in his face, because then Glenda thinks, he's cheating on me. I don't know why she always thinks that, but I think that's because of Thora Hurd's character, Edie Pegden, saying, you can't trust him, you can't do stuff like that. And I do like that dynamic that all of the characters have, the Pegden / Wilkinson family, / other three as well. I like their dynamic as a family. I think they're very interesting. I would like to do a video on Edie and Wesley, because I think they're an interesting couple to do as well. It'd be similar to this video. I feel like you have to have it in a pair, you know what I mean? But yeah, I think that Barry and Glenda are just great, and I think Last Summer Wine needed them at their time just to sort of freshen it up a bit. I mean, 1986, that's, it'd already been going, I'm trying to think, how long now? Their last Summer Wine had been running 13 years at that point, so they needed something to freshen them up. They brought in a whole load of characters, Barry and Glenda included. I'm surprised that they stayed that long, because they became, important to the story and stuff. So, I don't know why Barry and Glenda, they did talk about having children in some episodes, and then they didn't happen to. I don't know whether the writers thought, oh, we don't want to make them have children, or should we? But yeah, it's kind of interesting that Barry and Glenda managed to be in Lost and Wine and slotted in there quite nicely with some of the other regular characters. I feel like when they were first introduced, they weren't as big as what they were towards the end, because towards the end of the show, when going into the 2000s, there's always these intercuts of them in their living room and stuff like that. Obviously, Glenda always goes to the coffee mornings that all the ladies have in Lost and Summer Wine, and that's quite interesting, getting to see all of their chats and stuff. And obviously, they always tell Glenda to kind of be quiet and not disturb them, or and it's just a bit funny. They sort of leave her a bit left out in a way, I feel like, because they sort of have a go at her for looking after Barry like that, and they think Barry's a bad man. I mean, Barry's like probably one of the nicest guys in Lost of the Summer Wine. He's not gonna do anything. He's nicer than Howard, I can tell you that for a fact. But yeah, I feel like Barry and Glenda as a whole in Lost the Summer Wine were great, and I think both actors did an absolutely amazing job. It's a shame that they didn't have anything more to do in Lost the Summer Wine, because as we go into the 2000s, they do give Barry some more spotlight in areas, because he sort of gets his own trio in a way, which is so weird. He gets Herman Cheesdale, I think that's his name, or whatever his name is, the guy who turns up as like this repo man trying to look for Tom Simonite. He suddenly gets brought back, and he changes his name. I don't know, it's a bit weird. And then he's with Toby, who works at the golf thing, and he moves next door to Barry and Glenda. And then suddenly he always goes out with these two as if they're like his trio. I don't know. It's a bit of a weird time in Lost of Summer Wine when you reach about 2008, 2009, 2010, the last 3 years of Lost of Wine. They start giving a lot more stuff to Barry, which I think is interesting, but very odd to say the least. But Glenda, she gets to host like the coffee mornings at her house a lot of the time, which I think is quite interesting towards the end as well. Yeah, so that's kind of what I've got to say about Barry and Glenda. I think Barry does a great drunk impression, if you've ever seen that in some of the episodes, particularly in There Goes the Groom. It's sort of, he plays drunk as I think it was a drunk Father Christmas in one of them. That might be a different episode. I think he does play a drunk in quite a few episodes of Lost Summer Wine, where he's sort of like, all like that and all drunk and disorderly, and it's very interesting seeing that. But I do love the relationship between Barry and Glenda, and I think they were great characters. And yeah, I hope you all enjoyed the video. Please remember to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in a video soon. Bye.